John Mahoney is a lifelong resident of the town of Mount Pleasant and a businessman who wants to preserve his beloved town. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, he tells me why he's running for Mount Pleasant Town Council. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores.
John!
Good morning.
It is so good to see you.
Nice to meet you, Quintin.
Likewise.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, anytime. Well, let me jump into it. I don't know if you attended the candidates forum last week, but tell me, what letter grade would you give yourself?
I was not on my game, I'll be the first to admit. I'll give myself a B. I had a particularly long day at my day job, but it was an interesting forum. I thought it was some great active discussions on very important issues.
And let me reset, because a lot of people know that you're running for Mount Pleasant Town Council, and from the Mutual News article it says this: John Mahoney, environmental cleanup contractor and local businessman, has entered the field of candidates for Mount Pleasant Town Council. So tell me, why John Mahoney, why now?
First time in many years my work situation has leveled out where I can feel strongly and confident that I can dedicate the time and energy necessary to be an effective councilman. In past years, we've done, as the term environmental contractor would lead you to believe, we spent a lot of time chasing disasters, spills, things as crazy as anthrax cleanup, oil spills, Hurricane Katrina, Deepwater Horizon. So it would be hard to commit to a position like that when you might be gone for 6 months at a time.
Wow. And obviously, when you go around Mount Pleasant, you talk to people, it's all about the comprehensive plan. What is your definition of the comprehensive plan?
Well, having my environmental career, it's proactive planning, essentially, but I have been involved in the planning process for pollution response. There's an area contingency plan and individual facility plans for all industries and facilities that meet certain criteria. So the process of the planning itself is pretty automatic to me. There are some different criteria. Obviously, what we're concerned about most is controlled, reasonable growth, an important balance between business and residential, and quality of life. I think one of the most important things there's a reason everybody wants to live in Mount Pleasant, because it's a really great place to live.
Sure.
And we've got to maintain what I call homeland security, and that's maintain the baseline of the great services and safety and quality of life that we've grown to appreciate, understand, and it's the reason we're living there.
And obviously, in that particular forum, everyone talks about the workforce housing and affordable housing.
Absolutely.
What is the state of affordable and workforce housing in your mind?
I truly believe it's a free market issue. I believe most investors and businessmen aren't going to invest in a bad deal. The supply and demand is going to drive that. As long as there's a balance and we maintain the economic indicators of the average home price versus the average incomes versus the availability, I believe there is a roadmap there that we can follow to create reasonable growth in a safe manner.
You talk about roadmap, let's talk about the widening of Highway 41. What is the future of Highway 41 in your mind?
Well, as you know, and you probably read that I am been involved with the South Carolina Policy Council for a number of years. So I'll get to my signature statement, and that is our state government's letting us down in a lot of ways. Highway 41 specifically has got other factors in. We have the federal regulators, and obviously there's some county stakeholders involved, and some sensitive communities. The Phillips community is very important, and we have to make sure that we appreciate their concerns and accommodate their needs. But you tell me, it took 2.5 years to get the Ravenel Bridge done, and they're telling us we can't drive on that road in its full capacity till 2026. There's got to be ways that we can expedite some of these processes, and I intend to find out what they are.
And a lot of people are trying to find out why many people, I guess, in North Mount Pleasant by the Isle of Palms connector are being really abandoned by the Mount Pleasant Town Council. Where does your mind go to when you think of that?
It's a foreign concept to me. I grew up in the village, but we also had a tremendous presence at Porsche's Bluff, north of Rifle Range Road, for nearly 70 years. My family married into the Porsche family. So it really is a foreign concept to me. It's all one Mount Pleasant. I don't think there's a double standard. I certainly would work to fight that if there was one. I really don't see any difference from somebody that's lived here for 1 year or 40 years. It's all about fairness.
And a lot of people are really trying to fight flooding in the old village and the rest of Mount Pleasant. What should the Mount Pleasant government, that is, do next?
Mount Pleasant government right now is getting the bad end of the deal. We're spending $40 million, 30% of our operating budget a year on state-owned facilities and roads. The long-term solution is we have to hold the state accountable. Columbia needs lots of reform. The highway department's a great place to start, but there's a shell game up there and nobody really knows how the money flows. That's a start. But it's always flooded in Mount Pleasant. When I was a kid on William Street, every moon tide, we were wading waist deep in water. God's going to win a few of those battles, but at the same time, throwing money at it blindly is probably not, shouldn't be our number one instinct. We should look at long-term solutions for this. But again, where we live in the low country, it's going to be inherent that there is going to be occasional flooding that we're going to have to manage. I mean, look at New Orleans. After Hurricane Katrina, they virtually had unlimited federal funds for levees and pumps. And last summer, they had a weekend of rain, and before you know it, people were drowning. I mean, it was that dire. So maybe money isn't the answer.
And I know William Street. Let's go next door to Shem Creek. Obviously, the town of Mount Pleasant is actually being sued over the parking garage, and apparently, or reportedly, they haven't been able to keep their end of the bargain. How do we get here with that?
That's foreign to me too. If you make a deal with somebody, I believe you should honor it. It was a compromise of sorts. I wasn't up close and personal with that project, and it's I honestly struggle with having to relitigate that whole thing. But if we did make a bargain and it is legitimate, we absolutely should uphold our end of it.
And obviously, you're running for Mount Pleasant Town Council. You are a businessman. Who else is John Mahoney?
I am. Good question. Do a little self-reflection. I feel like I'm a team player. I've been participated in the founding of the lacrosse program, the youth program, while raising 3 nephews. I'm married to a local businesswoman, Heidi. She ran Locklear's restaurant there on Coleman Boulevard. But let me dial it back even further. My first job was at John's Barber Shop when I was 7 years old. I believe I inherited that job from Sparky Whitty. And then through high school and college, I lost my folks relatively young, so I worked my way through college working at a service station right on Coleman Boulevard. Shortly after that, I got into the environmental field, and it opened some avenues for travel, and including long stints in Puerto Rico, working these incident command positions for these natural disasters and large spill events is really rounded out my skill sets, I'll say, to be a leader and to be a better councilman, if you will. But importantly, I'm a huge advocate for small business and entrepreneurs. I've actually lectured with my uncle here at the College of Charleston on with some graduate entrepreneur courses that he started the program here at the Tate Center. My business model was a little bit more palatable, if you will, for a young college student, where you can actually, with some good credit, good reputation, and hard work, you can actually make it with a small business and succeed. So that's a subject near and dear to me. I'd love to see Mount Pleasant more business friendly than it currently is. Right now, with the moratoriums and the overregulation, we're crushing small businesses right now. And it's pretty eye-opening when I talk to some of my friends that say, and I tell them, you know how difficult it would be to sell your property right now? They seem stunned when I tell them that nobody's going to invest in this property if they're going to have to swallow these enormous oppressive impact fees. And it seems to be a band-aid for a long-term problem.
And I forgot to mention this, but I just saw her commercial last night, and that's Mayor Linda Page. She's obviously running for re-election as mayor. But if you were elected to town council, who would you want to work with? Mayor Page or Mayor Mahoney?
To be honest with you, I think we're fortunate to have 2 strong candidates that are willing to make this sacrifice. And it is a hard job. It really is difficult. I've got a lot of respect for both the candidates. I am currently supporting Mayor Page. I believe she's earned a second term through hard work. She's really smart, and if she doesn't know the answer to a problem, she will dig and find it. If I want to know something, I pick up the phone and call Linda. That's not to say that Mr. Haney isn't very capable. His record at the Citadel is very admirable, and I believe I could work with either of them to answer your question directly. But I know I can work with Lynn because we've been small businessmen in Mount Pleasant together for an awful long time.
Yeah, she's right there on Coleman Boulevard.
Absolutely.
John Mahoney, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Anytime.